Previously, we understand the basics of SWR. We use SWR library to fetch the data from the backend. SWR is derived from stale while revalidate. SWR is a strategy to first return a data from cache. This is what we call stale. Then we send the fetch request. This is what we call revalidate. And finally, come with the up-to-date data. With SWR, component will get a stream of data updates consistently and automatically. Previously in SWR lecture, we understand how we can use it. We created this simple example of user and we use this SWR to fetch the data. Now what I want to use SWR with static site rendering and with server-side rendering. There are few useful features of SWR. We can use SWR for fast, lightweight and reusable data fetching, built-in cache and request duplication, real-time experience, transport and protocol agnostic, and it also supports TypeScript. Now let me show you a simple syntax of SWR. I'm going to scroll down right here. I'm going to type the syntax of SWR. So when you call SWR hook from the SWR library, you will get three parameters. First key, second feature, and third is options. Now the key is a unique string for the request. It may be a function, an array, or a null value. Or you can specify here your API endpoint. Then we have here a feature function. This function is optional. This function is going to return a promise by fetching the data from this key endpoint. Just like that, we have here optional parameter which is options, and here you specify the object of options for this SWR hook. Just after that, this hook is going to return few properties. We are going to destructure these properties inside an object. So we'll get data, error, is validating, and muted from this use SWR hook. Inside this data, you will get the data from this feature function. Inside this error, if anything goes wrong, you will get the error message using this error variable. If there is a request or revalidation loading, this is going to return true or false value. And then we have muted. Muted is a function to mutate the cache data. When building a web application, you might need to reuse the data in many places of the UI. It is incredibly easy to create reusable data hooks on top of SWR. Let me show you how you can create your own data hook using SWR. We use the built-in use SWR hook to fetch this data. Now let's create own hook and fetch this data from the server. So right down here, I'm going to create a new function. I'm going to say here function. I'm going to name this function get data, and inside this function, I'm going to say constant. In the object, we pass data and error is equal to use SWR, and inside this, we're simply going to pass this endpoint, something like this. And just after that, we pass the feature function as a second argument. Just after that, right down here, I'm going to just return an object, and inside this object, I can say user data. Then I'm going to say is loading if we have error, and if we don't have data, then I'm going to return true and false value to this is loading. Just after that, I'm going to say is error, and then we pass this error here, something like this. Now let me use this custom hook. So I'm going to copy this, scroll up, and instead of use SWR, here I'm going to pass get data. And then from this, as you know, we can get user is loading and is error. So let me just use these properties here. User is loading and is error. So we pass this values here. So we destructure these values using this object. And now we can use these values right down here. So I'm going to say if there is error, I'm going to say is error. Just print that error. If there is a loading, then I'm going to say here is loading. And then I'm going to copy this and paste that right here. If it is loading, I'm going to print the loading message. And then I'm going to specify this user right here. Now let me get rid of this exclamation mark. Let me save these changes to the browser. And now let's head on to post users. I'm going to get my data. I'm going to get this data from this user endpoint. I just updated this user endpoint, something like this. And if I create another object here like this with data ID 2, and the name is going to be Jon Snow. Let me save this. You can see SWR will automatically fetch this data and I'm going to get my response back. So this is super easy, right? You don't have to reload your browser every time when you fetch the data. SWR will do everything for you.